going to start out by making sure the steering wheel is straight. Check the wheels, make sure the wheels are straight outside. There is a steering wheel lock on this vehicle, but some may not. So you want to take some wire ties, and we'll just prevent the steering wheel from spinning while we're doing this job. Just going to hook two together, and then just go around the shifter. You don't have to tighten them too tight, it's just going to prevent it from spinning. Just like that's good. And I'm going to disconnect the battery just because there's airbags involved. I'm going to use a 10mm wrench, loosen up the negative terminal on the battery. Slide that off and out of the way. I'm going to pull this panel off, just grab and slide it out. It's just clipped in. There's a 10mm bolt right here. Just use a 10mm socket, take that out. On the sides, right here and right here, there is a Phillips head screw. Use a Phillips head screwdriver, take those out. If you have to, you can push down on the parking brake to get that out of your way. I'm gonna grab this panel and just slide it out. It is clipped in. Just pull it out. There's clips right there and there. Now we're going to remove this bar. I'm going to use a 10mm socket, take the nuts off. There's 4 of them. Slide this bar off and slide it out. There's a push pin right here. We want to pop that out. Just use a trim tool and grab this duct and just slide it out. Pulls right down, just like that. Now we're going to pop off the shifter cable. Just use a trim tool or a screwdriver. Just pry this off. Slide that down a little bit. Right here there's a clip. Slide that clip off where the shifter cable goes. Just use a straight blade screwdriver. Pull that clip off. And you can use some pliers or some needle nose pliers and just squeeze the cable. Slide the cable down and out of the way. Now we're going to disconnect this connector right here. This is for the airbag. There's a retainer right here. Slide that retainer off and just use a small screwdriver. Push down on the clip. And then we want to run this wire back. Another retainer here. You can use a trim tool, pop these down just so you can get access. Slide that down. I'm just going to slide this out of the way. It's just going to sit right there for now. Then at the top of where the BCM is, you can see there's a computer with a lot of connectors in it. You want to disconnect the connector that goes to the wires for the steering column. So just try to feel around, disconnect that. It's a green connector, and then just slide that out of the way. Yeah, this This connector also goes to there, so we're going to disconnect that. Just just use your trim tool. You can even slide this off and disconnect that connector. So we're just disconnecting all the wires that are going to the column. Now we're going to disconnect this big connector. You're going to have to get on, there's 2 tabs, and then it kind of ratchets out. Slide that little door down. And that disconnects. And just double check, make sure there's no other wires connected. It looks like that's all our connectors. Now we're going to disconnect the intermediate shaft nut and bolt right here. I'm going to use a 15mm wrench on the nut and 13mm wrench on the bolt. And loosen this up. And slide that out. Just grab the intermediate shaft and push it down. Slide that out of the way. There's 4 nuts holding the rest of the steering column in. You want to take those out. Use a 15mm socket. I'm going to take the 2 back ones out first. And when you go to take the 2 front ones out, you want to make sure you support the steering column, at least for the last one. Just grab the column. And on the back, the cable is wrapped around this bracket right here. It's for the shifter cable. So you gotta just take it off that bracket. Just slide it out of the way. And you can grab the column and slide it out. Keep in mind, you're going to have these 2 spacers that might fall down while you're doing this, and those are going to go right there and right there when you go back together. So just look for these in case they fell. We're going to remove this cover right here. Use a T25 socket. Take these 3 screws out. Slide that out of the way. Take this cap off, just use a pry tool, just get underneath right here. And just twist. There's 3 clips that hold it on. And slide it off. Just has those clips to hold it on. And you can grab the sensor, just wiggle it back and forth. If you need to, you can use a pry tool. And it just slides off, just like that. Take the new sensor. There is this retainer. You want to leave that in there. That's preventing it from spinning. Slide this on just like the old one came off. Once it's in place, then you can take that off, that pin out. this to line up. Everything's lined up, and you can take that pin out. Put this cover on. If it didn't line up quite right, you might have to turn the wheel back and forth a little bit. That's good. This one has some tape over the connection point. I'm going to take that tape off. Line the connector up and lock it down. I'll put this plate back on, line it up, get the screws started. And tighten those down. I'm going to take these shims or spacers and put those in place. I'm just going to use a little tape just to hold those up. It's not going to affect anything. You can take the tape off after if you want. Just do that with both of them. And those will hold. Now we're going to slide the steering column back in position. And it's good to have a couple of the nuts in your hand. Get those started, at least one started. And try to get that cable in position in the back. You just have to wrap it around that bracket. Studs are in place. And now we can tighten those up. Torque those nuts to 20 foot-pounds. Perfect. Now slide the upper part of the intermediate shaft back in to the steering column. If you have to wiggle the column back and forth a little bit to get it to line up, that's fine. Slide the bolt in. And get the nut started. Now we're going to start connecting the connectors. Line that larger one up in the back. Push that in and then ratchet that down. Should be good right there. And that green connector for the BCM, plug that in. Those are the two back there. And slide the airbag connector down, and this other connector. This one's going to connect right here, lock that down, and then push that on that retainer right there. And the airbag connector is going to come over here. We're going to push this in, looks right, right there and right there. Then connect the connector, push this lock tab through. Make sure they all look like they're out of the way of any moving components. Looks good. Take the shifter cable, line this up, pull it through. We're going to put that lock pin in there. That horseshoe lock. Slide that in. We want to connect it up top. Lock that down. Slide the air duct in. Get that lined up where the push pin goes. Right there. Push that in. Now we can take this piece, get this lined up. Take the nuts, get those started. And tighten these down. And take the 10mm bolt, it's going to go right there. Get that started and tighten that down. Tighten these down. And take the side panel, line it up. Now you can disconnect that wire tie. Just use some cutters, take that off. Now reconnect the battery. Use a 10mm wrench and tighten that down.